Hello and welcome back. I hope all is well for you. I know the world is a very uncertain place right now. There's a lot going on, both with hospitals, economically, ecology, health-wise, just so much. And I feel for a lot of people. It's a very difficult, scary situation. Like, that's all I can say. I am a retail worker, so it's hard for me to talk on it because I'll go into a rant. It's the ignorance that I'm still seeing, the amount of people that just don't freaking care. Like, that still think it's just the flu, right? And it makes me not want to go to work. So it's like, just think about that the next time you say it's just the flu to a retail worker. And you wonder why your store might close down. So that's why. But to get into the video, as most of you know, I don't really like to do scripts, edits, anything like that. For my last video, you probably saw that my childhood probably was not the greatest. It was very much a difficult time for me, especially. So, to give you a timeline in a way, I was born on May 2nd, 2000, to Lloyd and Carol LeGronder. My dad was 57, almost 58, and my mom was 37. They moved from Stratford to St. Mary's when I was 2. I was sexually abused from January of 2004 to about July, August of 2004. I started kindergarten that same year, which was very much, I think I talked about it in the previous video, but I will say it was very hard. I remember I sat myself in a corner and did not want to interact with anyone or anything. I wanted to be left alone, and that was that. And so when it came to interacting with my peers, it was very hard throughout school. And then on top of that, I got head lice so bloody much. And then when you're the poor kid too, people know, and it sucks. Because we never had much money for food. We did and we didn't. Like, I still had at lunch. Like, I still had like a bologna sandwich type deal or a ham sandwich. But I didn't really have fruit or veggies. And then we had like a granola bar. But my lunch was pretty much... I relied very heavily on the pizza programs and the milk programs at school. And I'm forever thankful for them. And I've always said, like, if I ever had kids, I very much would want to sponsor a kid. Like, no kid should go without food. Like, their little tummies need it for their little brains to work. And I myself had to buy myself clothes a lot too. I would get like a new outfit when school would start or for my birthday. But really, it was up to me if I wanted a new shirt, a new pair of pants. I actually was the one that took myself bra shopping. What happened is my parents did take me to Zellers, but I could tell that my mom was uncomfortable. To give you a gist on my mom has bipolar and fetal alcohol syndrome. So her judgment skills are very poor. She's very much a child in a way with her thinking. If she gets really happy, the hands come out in the little but we had like a very strenuous relationship because it's very hard for me to see her as my mom when she did absolutely nothing to raise me. Then, so we went to Zellers and we started looking at the bras, and I can tell my mom feels very uncomfortable. And so I just said to her, I can do this when we go home, Mom. I can go down to Salvation Army and I can go and get some. And that's what I did. We went home, bought some that didn't hardly even fit me, And that was that. So that was like normal for my childhood. Throughout my childhood, it was very normal for me to make adult decisions. There was one time, it was after the spring thaw, and I wanted to play on my swing set in the backyard that my stepbrother had dropped off for me. And of course, at the spring thaw, the chains are going to be rusty, and of course they're going to break. And that's what happened. And my mom's only solution was to take me for ice cream. Not even to clean me up, bandage me up, nothing. Let's go get ice cream. And I even did tell her, I was probably 9, that I needed to go clean myself up, like my cuts and my bruises. Excuse me. And then we can go, right? But there was a lot of that. I have one memory where around 2008, I think it was around the time that Stephen Harper, for like low-income kids that could do camps, so I signed myself up for a gymnastics class. My parents didn't even take me to go shopping for the proper clothes, and it was my responsibility to get myself to the YMCA and home again. I was 8, and it's something I now realize, like, no, that was not right. Like, my parents should have helped me at least get ready, took me there, dropped me off. Because now that I think about it, I would have got there, and everybody else would have had their parents, except for me. And that happened a lot. There was a lot of things where it was Renee, right? There was no parents at any point to do anything. And I think that's why in high school, like, I hated, and I still hate doing goals. It's like, let me just take things at a time. It's all I've known in my life is goal setting and keeping yourself going, right? Like, you're here today, but you could be here in a week. Do it, right? And even when it came to school, like, my parents didn't encourage me too much with school. I distinctly remember my dad being very unhappy with the fact that I got a B+ in French, and all my rest of the grades were absolute crap. That really was... I knew my dad was going to die, so I tried to spend as much time as I could with him, and I wanted his praise and his love, but he never returned it fully till he had his stroke, and it was too late. Because he was a very bitter, scary man to me. And I never fully realized it till much later on when I'm safe from the trauma, right? I'm no longer in that environment. But I did get spankings. I did get hit upside the head one day for not bringing home his smokes fast enough. Another thing that was big in the house is there'd be times that I'd be sick with the flu, and I would want a glass of water, and I would call for my dad. You know what he would say to me? "I'm not your beeping waiter." You can fill in the blank. The N-word. He would say that to me when I was sick, and I would have to crawl out of bed, go and get what I need, or make myself toast, because he wouldn't want to. "I'm not your damn waiter." Like, it's the one thing that I hate. Like, it's the thing that still plays off in my head, because it's the way he said it, and the fact that he used that word, because the civil rights movement has always been one of my biggest things since I was a little girl, and I used to always freaking, it's like, "Daddy, that is a very dirty word. Don't ever use that word," right? Or I used to go into, "You know something, Daddy? That's the plural word. You need to be grammatically correct." And I would say the male term and the female term, and then I would say that plural term. And he would always be like, "Well, there goes the fun in that word." And I'm like, that's the freaking point. You're a white person. This word is not even supposed to be fun to say. But because he was born in 1942, it's all he freaking knew. But it used to just drive me up the wall. And yes, I used to get spankings for that because I was talking back to my elders, but I did not care. That's something that very much upsets me. And I don't care if it was my dad. He was going to get told because that goes against my values and my rights. Once he had his stroke, it was like he was a changed man. He had a stroke in late November of 2010. And he did change emotionally. There was a light put into his eyes that was never there before. And he became very much a father, or tried to be, in what little time he had left, because he had only been out of the hospital not even 3 weeks before he passed. So he tried his hardest with what little he could do. I remember going up to the hospital with my mom to go see him, and I really wanted to go see my dad. So the minute I got off the elevator, I took off like a shot for his room, and I got to his room, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" First off, my dad had a stroke, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong. I believe the left side it was the right side that was impaired because he lost his speech. So for one thing, he said a full sentence to me, which was, "Oh my God," right? Like, that's amazing. And the fact that he called me Bum, which was a childhood nickname. Like, even though I was scared of my dad, he could be very mean, he was still my dad. And this is something that I harp on people. You can either paint a good picture of somebody and just remember all the good and ignore the bad. Paint a bad picture and ignore all the good. Or paint an accurate picture and know that there was good times and know there was bad times. But you can't live in a delusional state and ignore one or the other side, because that will only cause you more pain, more anger, more bitterness, especially if you just remember the good and you ignore the bad. Because if you just let the bad build and build and build, especially if it's something traumatic that happened to you, it's not doing you any good. It's giving you stress. It's giving you anxiety. Right? Same thing if you just are ignoring all the good and just seeing the bad. You're just an angry, bitter person. You're ignoring all the good that happened to you. None of that bad stuff deserved to happen to you, but that good stuff did. Right? Sorry, did not mean to go off like that. But it felt really good. And I kind of had to take back a sec, just go, and then I went and saw my dad. He did come home for Christmas that year. They did let him out. They jailbreaked him, as I jokingly called it. And it was an amazing Christmas. Actually, this is the last picture I have with my dad before he died. And it was good. And again, with the emotions, before he left to go back to the hospital, throughout my childhood, my dad had always told me, "Don't ever cry. Don't ever cry. Crying is a sign of weakness." And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go and cry. So I took myself to my bedroom, and I sat down and I started crying. So my dad told my Uncle Bill, "Wait, I go see my daughter." And that's what my dad did. He came and he held me. And he said that, and to the best of his degree, that he would be out soon, and that he would try his damnedest to try and fix whatever had happened. Because my parents didn't know about my sexual abuse. My mom did catch us, and my dad didn't know. And I do feel strongly like that's part of the reason why we did not have a family dynamic. It's because my parents knew, but they felt like they failed me because they did nothing. Especially my mom. And because of my mom's fetal alcohol syndrome and her poor judgment skills, she did nothing, right? And it's so hard not to hold it against her, if that makes sense. Because, like, I understand for my mom, she probably didn't understand in her head what was going on to me. And that's why she did nothing. That's why she just stood there for a couple seconds even, right? But at the same time, it's like, I am your daughter. You should have done something. But you didn't. And so back to my dad, sorry. But that's something that I strongly feel. Like, my parents felt like they failed me, and they distanced themselves from me. Because I very much felt neglected. I still feel very much abandoned. I still struggle with my mother to this day, right? Because she's very much a child. Like, even with everything going on with the COVID-19, it's like I have to constantly remind her, you can't touch people, Mom. You can't hug them. Yeah, you can't cough into your hand, right? Because she's fucking notorious for doing that. You have to cough into your this. Can't take the bus, Mom. It's a lot of restrictions for her, and it's so hard for her right now. And they're urging people to only have one person go out of the house, but it's like she at least needs to go out of the house once a week to have that social recharge, or else she'll, if it makes sense, my mom does not have enough socialness, even if it's just going into a store and feeling other people's energies. She breaks down. Like, that's all I can really say. And that's why I get so upset when I see people shaming. It's like that person could have special needs or a mental disability of some kind, right? And they are trying their hardest. But they need their milk and their bread and their eggs. They are trying their hardest to keep their distance from you. They are trying their hardest to cough into, like, their elbow, right? They are doing what they need to do while still trying to be independent, right? I'm sorry to do that, but like, that's something that's been bothering me lately too. But he went back to the hospital, and then they let him out in March, which, end of February, which was okay, but we always, this is something that I have to get into my head, is that nothing could have been done. My dad's time was up. The 3 weeks that I had with him out of the hospital are weeks that I will always cherish. I never saw him so emotional, so kind, so caring. Actually, around that time, I was actually learning how to ride a bike for the first time. We never had money for a bike growing up, but my brother found one. He either found it on the curb or he dumpster dived for it, but I had a new bike, and I was learning how to ride it. And Nene fell off her bike, and I went home, and again, I was taught not to cry, so where's Renee going? Her room. But my dad very much said, Renee, come here. Renee, come here. And I cried in my dad's arms for the first time in my whole life. And you wouldn't believe the warmth I felt for the first time in my whole life. Like, it was incredible. Or the day he met me at the bus stop. Like, he was really trying to be a dad for the first time in my whole life. But it was too late. Come March 22nd. Sorry, Tigger's being a bug. Come March 22nd, I knew something was not right. I woke up that morning. I could feel it in my chest. The atmosphere in the house just did not seem right. Ever since my dad had his stroke, he wasn't up at the crack of dawn like he used to be. He was up closer to 7. Well, this morning, he wasn't even up at 7. He didn't get up till almost 8:30 when I had to go catch the bus. And even then, he went and sat in his chair, and he just sort of sat there. And when I left for school, I really, really had to shake my dad to wake him up, you know, to say goodbye to him. I went to school that day, and I came home, and I went to the next door neighbor's house, and both my parents tried their hardest to get me to come home and have a bath, but I didn't want to. My dad was the final kicker because, well, my dad had the stroke in November, right? To see him come over and get me was like the final, okay, I need to go home. So I go home and I start my bath. I'm not even there for 5 minutes. And I start hearing my dad. And I don't know how to explain it, but it just sounded like my dad was coughing. He was gasping for air. He was panicking. Like, he was panicking. And I'm in the bathtub and I'm just thinking, what the hell's going on? Mind you, I am 10 years old. And my mom comes running into the bathroom and she's screaming, what do I do? And I said to her, call 911. Dad's in trouble, right? Like, I can't, I'm a child. I don't know what else to do. So I get my towel on, I run out to see my dad, and he's having a heart attack. And I grabbed his arm and I just said, Daddy, 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 are you okay? Are you okay? And the minute I put my arm on him, it's as if he took a deep breath, said, I'm fine, Bum, I'm fine. I said, everything's okay, an ambulance is on its way. And I said, I'm just gonna go get dressed. I'll be right back, Daddy, okay? I'll be right back. And I ran back from my bedroom. And those are the last words that I ever said to my dad. The ambulance came. They did what they needed to do. They took him away, but he was gone. I came out of my bedroom and I sat down in the chair that he just died in and felt numb. Utter, complete numbness. Because, yes, that was my dad. But he wasn't my dad. My whole childhood, I was raised by strangers. That's what it felt like. And I felt the most utterly alone with my mom, because my dad had been the biggest support for my mom up to this point. And now since he's dead, where's the support for my mom? I was up till almost, I think, 3 o'clock that morning, into like the following morning, March 23rd. I still went to school the next morning, which everybody thought I was fucking insane. And then it didn't hit me until I got to school and I sat down on the bench and I told my grade 5 teacher that my dad was gone. That I just went, and I just lost it. I didn't go to school the rest of the week. We went and saw his body on the Friday in the pine coffin before they went to go take it cremated, which was a lot because he was very bruised in the face. And it looked like he was sleeping. Like, I really wanted to shake my dad and wake him up. But I knew that I couldn't, that he was gone. I don't remember his funeral. His funeral was very vague. I remember my one sister made it a complete show. My dad's first wife came, which she's allowed to. Right? You can't stop her. But she was pretty much, like, if he went, poke, she probably would have went, just completely fall right over into a casket type deal. And she did die the next year. But she just looked like death warmed over her very quickly. Like, she didn't. And Melissa was dragging her here, there, everywhere. And it was to the point where I even said, Melissa, like, your mom, her feet are back here, her head's up here. Let her feet catch up with her body. You know? Like, crying out loud. She's like an old lady. She drove us home. And that's where the trouble started with my mom. Because once we got home, she declared the house was haunted. My house was haunted growing up as a kid. I'm not going to deny that. But it's like, the minute she said that, that sort of, my mom was already in a very bad space. But the minute she said that, that just sort of sent my mom even more into an even worse off state. Like, I don't think my mom was going to throw me a birthday party. But I think it was after that she started planning my birthday party. Yeah, I had a birthday party after my dad died. I did not want one. And I vocalized it many times. I was like, Mom, I do not want one. And it got to the point where I said to myself that my mom's doing this more for herself than for me. It's a distraction for her. Because when my birthday came, that's all you could sense, was that everybody felt sorry for me. And I don't like it when people feel sorry for me. I'm a hard-ass woman who went through a lot of shit to get where I am today. And it's like, I don't want sympathy from nobody. It's like, especially from my family. Because you all could have done something, but you didn't, right? And I understand, like, a lot of them were older. Like, I mean, so after my dad died and everything happened, my mom went off her medication inevitably. I ended up having to go into foster care with my aunt and uncle, who I never met in my whole life, because my dad did not like my Uncle Brad at all. They always had it out for each other. So on top of all this shit that happened to Renee, I'm going into a complete utter stranger's house on top of that. And I also I never realized how traumatic it was going to see my mom at the hospital too during that time that she was off her meds. Like, really, nobody should have allowed me to go up to the hospitals at 10 years old by myself, but they did. And that was my norm for like 2 or 3 years, until my mom got stable again and I could actually go back to her house for overnights and everything. Because it was really hard for my mom. My parents were together from the time my mom was 18 up till his death, right? Like, they met accidentally. So my mom was actually pregnant at the time, and she was actually meeting her boyfriend at the time, but she walked into the wrong bar. I think she was supposed to go to the Kent, but she went to the Empire instead, and that's where my dad was. And I guess my dad saw the condition my mom was in. I shouldn't use the word condition, but and he knew she was homeless, and she knew the guy that she was seeing wasn't the greatest. So he offered her a place to stay. And their friendship sort of went from there. My dad, it's hard to say. Because my mom loves him. My mom loves him still. And it's still very much, you can't really say anything ill will about my dad in front of my mom. Because it's still there for her. Like, she doesn't even like talking about my spankings. It's very touchy for her. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of my childhood. If YouTube doesn't turn off the comments, if you have any questions, anything, I'm completely okay, right? Like, I'm going to be 20 this year. My dad's been gone 9 years. It's been close to 16, I think, years since I've been sexually abused. And for me, it was my life. Like, I knew my situation, and I knew that I had to do what I had to do in order to survive. If I didn't do it, then, right? It's like, even, I remember there was points where, like, my parents didn't even have money to get me lunches. So I had to save up as much crack change. I remember correctly, $5 got me a little chubby, a loaf of bread, and canned salmon. And that would be my lunch for a week. So, it's hard. It's very hard, you know. I've always wanted a normal childhood. And it hurts when people say I should be appreciative to my parents. It's like, great. Congratulations that your parents were able to raise you and that you had a pretty okay childhood. Right? Great. Great for you. Do you want a cookie? Like, that's just how it feels for me whenever I hear people say that. Because it's like, it really is. Some people are so inconsiderate before they speak. They don't ever think that somebody could have went through something like I did. Right? Like, I know people stare at me in public whenever I talk to my mom the way I do. But that's because, like, there's some days where my mom Some days are bad for my mom. I'm not gonna lie. It's just, she gets stuck in this rut like a child, and it's just, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to. I don't want to. And it's just, just walk away, Renee. Just walk away. That's all you can do. That's all you really can do. But probably in the future, I would like to do a video on my mom explaining some more into detail what that was like growing up with. I'll probably do a video at some point on my dad, because my dad's a very interesting person. But yeah, we all have a story. Never let anybody take that story